From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
My name is Beatrice Haspel, and I am the Collections Officer of the Library of Congress. It is a great privilege for me to be here to introduce to you Michael Grant. Michael was born in Los Angeles, and being part of a military family, he moved all over the country. He attended 10 schools in 5 states, as well as 3 schools in France. He also lived some time in Italy and the Azores, so he speaks quite a few languages. Actually, Michael's travels have somehow influenced his decision to become a writer, because, as he says, it was one of the few jobs that wouldn't tie him down to a specific location. Michael lives in California and is married to Catherine K. Applegate. Michael and Catherine have been successfully writing for over 20 years, sometimes on their own, sometimes as a partner. They are co-authors of the big hit series Animorphs, as you know, and many other popular series. Michael Grant is the author of several acclaimed books as Gone, Hunger, The Magnificent 12, and many, many more. In fact, Michael has authored or co-authored over 150 books, 150. That is just really incredible. And today, he's here to talk to you about his latest success that he and Catherine wrote together, the mystery thriller Eve and Adam. So without further delay, please welcome Michael Grant.
Hello. I don't really give speeches, and I think I'm about to demonstrate that for you. First of all, for those of you who are hoping my wife would be here, unfortunately she's not. We have kids, 15 and 12. That's their height, 15 feet, 12 feet. They're in school and like people to drive them to school as opposed to having to hitchhike. So she wasn't able to come. I actually lived here in Washington, D.C. at one point in my life, or at a couple different points in my life. But when I was 19, I was living here and working at a law firm called Wilmer Cutler and Pickering, which is now renamed as Wilmer and Hale. I was not a lawyer. I was actually a high school dropout. But I worked in the law library as their document guy, so I used to ride a bike up and down Washington streets in the steaming heat, wearing a suit, picking up documents, and doing various and sundry chores like that, which I enjoyed. Since Catherine's not here, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about us as a couple and where we started, which inevitably, because I'm a writer and therefore an egomaniac, starts with my own story. As I mentioned, when I was 16, I dropped out of school. I want to preface this by saying that I am not a role model to all the kids. For God's sake, don't live your lives the way I live mine. That'd be a mistake. I can't live in a country full of people like me. So I dropped out of school at the age of 16, having completed 10th grade, and just started 11th grade. And I was here in the D.C. area. I don't actually remember the name of the school, but it was in Maryland somewhere. And I went to school. I was always the new kid in school because I moved all the time. So I show up at school for 11th grade, and I'm going to have lunch. And I walk in, and I see the food, and I'm heading for the food. And the teacher comes over to me and says, hey, that's the wrong door. So I said, oh, okay, cool. I'll totally remember that next time. And then I started to walk toward the food, and he said, no, sir, no, young man. You will turn around and walk back out that door and come in the right door. So I dropped out of school. It made perfect sense at the time. I got a job at Toys R Us out in PG County as a stock clerk. I was 16, so I had to get a fake ID, which I cleverly got by signing up for the draft during Vietnam. I know, smart of me. Worked there for a while. Those of you who had childhoods around that time and may have bought a Barbie because I worked in the doll aisle and came home to find that your Barbie was more anatomically correct than you might have expected. That was me. I was 16. We thought it was funny. So I worked there for a while and saved up my money, $1.60 an hour, saved up enough to take myself and a cashier named Connie off to Europe for 3 months. Came back after 3 months without Connie. She didn't die, she just left. I lost her somewhere in Germany. And also, all my stuff got ripped off. And in those days, we didn't have cell phones or anything. You know, like it was like chiseling on stone. So all my stuff got ripped off. And I'm in Frankfurt, Germany, and I'm 2 weeks away from when I can use my ticket. So I ended up living under a bridge in Frankfurt, Germany for 2 weeks, excuse me. Came back through customs, and I had three things. I had my fatigue jacket, which had not been ripped off. I had a jar of peanut butter that made it into my hands from the American commissary, because I was still a military dependent. And I had a copy of Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. Not realizing at the time what an apt choice that was. As a matter of fact, it was a little too spot on when you think about it. So I came back and worked in various sorts of what are usually called dead-end jobs, although I don't think I felt that way about them at the time. Mostly in restaurants. I waited tables for a long time, and then kind of hit my bottom as a human being in Austin, Texas. And I was, I guess, about 24 years old. I'd done all kinds of things I'm not proud of, and had gotten in all kinds of trouble, and ended up hitchhiking into Austin, Texas, broke, and living under a freeway overpass off I-35. My second bridge living experience. The bridge in Frankfurt was like way better because there was sand and it was quiet. The overpass was bad because you're sleeping right up there, and the road's like there, up over your face. So not like great. I didn't even have Ambien in those days. God knows how I slept. In any case, I was pretty down and out in Austin, Texas, and keeping my clothes in a locker at the Trailways station downtown so I could go and get my black and white so I could, work. And I had a job bussing tables, got a job waiting tables, got an apartment, finally, just off campus. It was a nasty, roach-infested apartment. When I say roach-infested, those of you who've seen the second movie of Lord of the Rings, remember the orcs at Helm's Deep? And you look out and there's billions of them. That was my roaches. So one day I'm coming home from work and waiting tables. I come home from work and I happen to look up and see a girl through the window. And to answer your disgusting questions, yes, she was wearing clothing. And I went over and said, I got to go meet that girl. And I had no particular reason why, I just had to. So I went over and walked up outside her door and heard her talking to her mother. Had to come back like 4 times because she would not get off the phone. This has not changed. So I eventually knock on the door, and being the brilliant future writer with the great imagination that I have, I said, I need to borrow a can opener. That was my line. It was a lie because I had a can opener. It was like all I had was a can opener, but that's, can I borrow a can opener? And long story short, 24 hours later, we were living together and have been together ever since. We did not get together thinking we were going to be writers. We got together with no damn clue what we were going to be. Hadn't really thought about it. And over the next decade, full decade, her with her degree from the University of Texas, and me with my high school dropout diploma, my GED, worked at various jobs, mostly waiting tables. I was a waiter for 10 years altogether. I was a damn good waiter. I'm still proud of having been a damn good waiter, to tell you the truth. And I think if you came and grabbed me at 4 o'clock in the morning and shook me awake and said, "What are you?" I'd probably still say waiter. So those are, that's my background and where I came from on that. And in about 1987 or 88, we were cleaning toilets for a living on Cape Cod. We had a cleaning service, and life wasn't great. We were driving the kind of car that people just came in over the border would look at and go, "Damn, that's one ugly car." The kind of car you could see the road. I heard President Obama, or Michelle Obama, talking about being able to see through her door. Please, I could see through the floor. I could see the road going by underneath. So we were desperately poor and had screwed up our lives pretty effectively, I would say. And then Catherine looked at me one day and said the words that would change both of our lives, which was, "Michael, it's time to put down the bong and get a career." So I was surprised by this, and she said, we should, because we need a career, and we need to like have kids. No, I thought she was joking about the kids. No, they're never joking for the men in the audience. That is so not a joke. That's deadly serious stuff. So I said, "Oh, great, what's our career?" And she said, "Well, we're going to write." I said, "Sweet. Neither of us has ever done any writing before. How do we do that?" And she said, "I'll tell you how. We break in through the back door. We write a Harlequin romance." So I'm going to read you a little bit, just one paragraph, of our very first book. This was published in 1989. It's called The Midas Touch. I should have a low voice for this. The fire in her belly spread and consumed, sucking away precious air, burning away her self-control. She freed the buttons of Jake's shirt, unable to stop the hands that traveled every inch of his powerful shoulders, that raked the sinews of his back, that searched for and found the hard nipples nearly lost in the rough hair of his chest. So, since we're sponsored by the Library of Congress, I want to say that I'm against book burning. However, if you come across one of those and you have a lighter, feel free to spark it up. From there, we got tired of that pretty quickly and decided we were going to ghostwrite for Sweet Valley Twins. Sweet Valley Twins, there was a good twin, there was an evil twin. That's the whole damn story. We did, I think, 19 of those, and we learned our job in the process. We also then started ghostwriting for other things. We wrote for Disney for a while. We wrote Little Mermaid books. We wrote Aladdin books. We wrote spin-offs of various rides like Pirates of the Caribbean and that sort of stuff. And that's where we started racking up all the numbers. It ended up being 150 books. For them and for other series, we wrote under all kinds of different names. I am, among other things, Pat Polari, which nobody will remember except some like ex-pothead college kids who happen to read a series called Barfarama, which is exactly what it sounds like. And eventually then we had reached kind of a low point in our lives, and we're like, wow, this isn't going that great. And at this point we're living in Florida, walking around an apartment complex with our cat, because, I don't know, we just were. And Catherine looked at me and said, I'm sick and tired of series. And that's the cleaned up version. Something series. I'm done with that. And I said, well, we can't quit because we're not R.L. Stine yet. And we wanted desperately to be R.L. Stine at that point. So I said, listen, forget everything else. Forget everything we've done. If you could write anything, what would you write? She said, I want to have kids feel what it's like to be in an animal's head. I want to put kids inside an animal, not a fake cartoony animal, but the real thing. I said, that's a science fiction premise. We're going to need some aliens. So we came up with something called Animorphs, and then we sold that over the transom, as they say, just fired it off to Jean Fywell at Scholastic and said, look, this is a cool idea. And she wrote back and said, yeah, that's a cool idea. And that ended up being 54 regular books and 2 side series for a total of 63 books. Needless to say, our lives changed. It went from, like I say, driving the car that we used to have to hide from people, to being able to go to the Mercedes dealership and going, I'll take one of those and one of those. So it was very nice. And Animorphs is very, very good to us, and we felt like, oh, now we are R.L. Stine, which is kind of cool. So we did that for a while and wrote Everworld and wrote Remnants, 2 other science fiction series, and then decided, Jake, we were just adopting Julia at that point, and Jake was getting a little older, and we thought we should take some time off and raise our kids. Well, we soon realized that was a waste of time. And that we weren't doing a particularly good job of it. So we went back to work. And Catherine wanted to do one thing, and I wanted to do another. At this point, we had written everything we'd written together. But she wanted to write younger and more literary, and I wanted to continue creeping out teenagers. So we went our separate ways. But now Catherine's really come into her own as a literary writer. So I thought, since she isn't here to stand up for her own work, I would read you a little bit of something called The One and Only Ivan, which a lot of people are talking about as a possible Newbery contender this year. It's not long. I'm going to show you what my wife gets away with. This is chapter 1. This is the true story, by the way, or based on a true story of a gorilla who was imprisoned in a shopping mall cage for 27 years. Hello, I am Ivan. I'm a gorilla. It's not as easy as it looks. That's chapter 1. I can't believe she gets away with this. You know how long my chapters are? That's a chapter? In any case, it's a great book, and you guys should all pick it up. I'm going to hold it up for the cameras because I'm proud of her. So I also said on Twitter and Facebook, okay, so after we quit and unquit, the first thing I wrote was a series called Gone. And Gone, I pitched it as a 6-book series, and I just, as of I think 3 days ago, wrote the last words of the series. So I know who lives and who dies and what happens. I know it all finally. I never know in advance. I make stuff up every day. So I got to the end, and I was kind of surprised too. I was like, oh, good, that's end. And then I had to admit this. I also admitted this, so it was weird. You have this emotional thing where something ends like that, and you get a little weird. In this case, the weirdness for me, it manifested itself in listening, I don't know why, to Hanson's Bop over and over again on a loop. I'd like 3 times right away, and then I'd probably listen to it 10 times since. As I walk away, I'll probably be listening to it again. I don't know what the hell that was about, but just, that's where it was. So I'm going to read you a quick section of Light. It's the final book in the Gone series. The Gone series is about what happens when every single person over the age of 14 disappears from the town of Perdido Beach, California. Astrid and Decca were on the boat, apparently discussing something important. Astrid looked impatient, like she was restraining herself from saying something snippy. Decca looked like a thundercloud that might spark lightning at any moment. So basically, both girls totally normal. Astrid was the first to notice Brianna. "Aren't you supposed to be patrolling?" "Where's Sam?" Brianna asked. "He's out, so is Adelio," Decca said. "You going to tell us what's in the bag, or do we have to guess?" Brianna stopped. She was disappointed. In her imagination, the big revelation would be to an admiring Sam Temple. He was the one she wanted to impress. Failing that, Adelio, who was generally warm and sweet to her. But she was tired and wanted to put the bag down. Also, she couldn't keep the secret any longer. She climbed nimbly up onto the top deck of the boat and grinned and said, "Is it anyone's birthday? Because I have a present." "Breeze," Decca warned. So Brianna opened the bag. Decca looked inside. "What is it?" So Brianna upended the bag. Dead lizards, broken eggs, and Drake's head landed on the anti-skid flooring. "Ah!" Astrid screamed. "Oh, Jesus," Decca yelled. "I know," Brianna said proudly. "Oh, my God. Oh, that is..." What lay there was something to strike envy into the heart of a horror movie special effects expert. The 2 halves of Drake's head had started to rejoin. But because the halves had been tossed wildly together, the process was very incomplete. Very. In fact, at the moment, the halves were backwards, so that the left half was looking one direction and the right half another. Sections of neck and spine stuck both up and down. The part that held most of Drake's mouth was stuffed with hair from the back of his head, and somehow bits of dead lizard were squeezed in between. Only the dead lizards thus incorporated were no longer dead, and there was egg white smeared across one eye. The mouth was trying to speak and not managing it. The lizard tail whipped one eye, hard to tell if it was left or right, a parody of Drake's whip arm. The 3 of them stared. Astrid with blue eyes wide, hand over mouth, Decca with mouth wide open and brow furrowed, Brianna like a proud school kid showing off her art project. "Ta-da," Brianna said. So that's a little section of Light, which is as you can tell, it's a perky, cheerful series. I write mostly perky, cheerful stuff. I have a second series going, and then we'll get on to Eve and Adam. How am I doing on time? Good, okay, cool. This is a little section from Berserk. Berserk is about nanotechnology and a war to control the human race by entering the brain and rewiring the brain. It's all very dark and gloomy and very horribly creepy. But this is a section from Berserk 2, which is also, I can't read you from the book because it's not out yet. Ophelia would have laughed at the idea that what didn't kill you made you stronger. Her legs were gone, one at the knee, one 6 inches higher. She was not stronger. But worse, like Vincent, she had lost her biots. Had Ophelia been capable of rational thought, she might have contemplated on the comparison between legs, actual physical legs, and the biots, which were not, after all, exactly original equipment for any human. Her legs had burned like candles, melted like wax down to the bone. They'd amputated the barbecued stumps in the OR there at Bellevue Hospital, but her biots were dead long before that, incinerated in the terrible disaster at the United Nations. By the time doctors had taken what was left of her legs, what was left of her mind wasn't much. Ophelia was guarded by FBI agents who labeled her as a terrorist suspect. There was just one outside the door to her hospital room and one at the end of the hallway and one at the nurse's station. So had Ophelia been sane, she probably would have been surprised to see a man standing at the foot of her bed who was obviously not a doctor, despite his white coat. Underneath the white coat was a faded lilac velour blazer. His usual jaunty top had been set aside somewhere, but he still had Danny Trejo's face. Caligula, he had no other name, came close to her, stood beside her. Ophelia gazed up at him, and in a moment of clarity, a brief gap between the painkillers and the mental anguish seemed almost to recognize him. "You?" "Yes, Ophelia." She asked. It was not a coherent question, but Caligula answered as though it was, as though she could understand, even though her eyes had rolled up into her head and a manic grin had distorted her lips. "Wilkes got out. The others are alive." And then he said, "You did good, Ophelia. You were brave." He put a palm on her forehead, a gesture that was tender but not, because he used the pressure to hold her head still, as with a single swift motion he buried the stiletto to the hilt in her temple. From his pocket he withdrew a small cylinder ending in a pointed valve. He pulled the knife out, pushed the valve into the hole. He opened the valve and let his own special mixture of white phosphorus flow into her brain. An autopsy might just conceivably produce evidence of nanotechnology, and it was part of Caligula's brief to stop that happening. That and a mad Ophelia might eventually, in some disjointed rant, have given up a deadly secret or two. The only survivor of the UN massacre in custody was no longer available for questioning. By the time Caligula left the room, Ophelia's eye sockets were dripping liquid fire. So again, you can see Catherine went one way with her career, and I went a different one. It's fun because I'm reading and I notice mommies taking their kids out of here. I was like, sorry, it's a Michael Grant event. It's not a John Sheska event. Sorry. So then, after many years of doing that, I wrote a series called The Magnificent 12, and Catherine's been writing other stuff as well. And now, so now comes the part where we get reunited as writers. And this happened because Jean Feiwel, who was our editor at Scholastic, when she was at Scholastic, who had published Animorphs, and who had made us what we are today, said, would you guys like to write another book together? And we said, no, because life is like peaceful and everything. So we're not arguing. Nobody's throwing things. It's great. Let's just leave it alone. So Jean said, I'm Jean Feiwel. And we said, oh, okay, then. In that case, we'll do it. Because she's a little scary. Plus, we owe Jean a whole lot. So anything Jean asks us to do, we'll do. In any case, she said, I've got an idea for it. I said, okay. So it's called Eve and Adam. We said, well, that's a title. What's the idea? She said, well, why do you think I have you two idiots? I got the title, Jesus. So we thought about it for a while, and we kind of got interested in the idea of rewriting Genesis. We did this because we're just arrogant enough to think we should rewrite the Bible. And because it's cool because Moses is our co-author. And we're not paying him, but he is. So we thought, that's pretty cool, man. Moses, Catherine Applegate, and Michael Grant. So I'll just read you. Looking through this, it was like really hard to find a place to read, and this is relatively short, so I have to set it up a little bit by telling you that the idea is, the tagline for the series is, and girl created boy. So there's Eve, who thinks she's running a simulation, thinks she's making a simulated guy using software. Turns out it's not so much simulated. Turns out it's the real thing. So this is Eve first finding out that she's got this simulation to do and thinking about how she's going to do it. I stare at my first choice, the choice I have to make before I get into the details of playing God, male or female. I consider the looming monitor. Here's the thing. I'm not beautiful. I'm pretty, I'll allow that much, pretty. But I'm not the girl boys long for. Cheerleader, no. Prom queen, no. Voted most likely to get a modeling contract? No. It's not like I've spent my life beating the boys back with a flaming torch. So am I creating a male or a female? Worse yet, no, maybe it's better yet, I'm picky. Not so much about looks, although even there I'm kind of picky. It's more that I can't pretend some guy is interesting when he's not. If he's immature, I'll probably tell him so within 5 minutes of knowing him. And if he looks ridiculous, dressed up like some wannabe, I'll probably say that too, or more likely just steer clear of him. When you're at a high school looking around at the boys and you subtract all the ones who are looking for Ms. Perfect and subtract all the childish, ludicrous, boring, mean, or sex-obsessed ones, there aren't that many left. It's not that I think I'm some kind of prize. No, wait, that's not true. I do think I'm some kind of prize. I'm smart, occasionally funny, and I'm pretty. And I don't see why I should spend long dates with some guy who expresses himself in single syllables and wants to go to slasher movies, which does not answer the question, male or female. I also don't understand why I should let some guy fondle me when I know the relationship has no future. I don't need to be groped that badly. So I've been on exactly 3 dates. The first was when I was 14, the most recent 2 years ago. A guy tried to kiss me once. I didn't let him. I live that part of my life vicariously through Aislinn, her best friend. I hear her stories, and I admit I'm fascinated most of the time, sometimes kind of appalled, and then fascinated again. Sometimes I wonder what it'd be like to be her, to be that experimental, to be that what the hell, to actually have detailed, well-informed opinions on questions having to do with kissing or whatever. I have no opinion on chest hair versus no chest hair. Aislinn could write a treatise on that alone. So who do I want to create with my simulated godlike powers? Male or female? I sigh. I squirm in my wheelchair. Who am I kidding? Male. So that's it for all of that. Better hold up the cover. Eve and Adam, our first collaboration since Animorphs. Some people, there's a lot of Easter eggs in here. We've gone to the trouble. of planting Easter eggs in here. So you might first want to look at a movie called Escape from New York, because there's an inside joke having to do with one of the character names. So that's the last thing we've written together. We do have a sequel coming eventually when we write it. I don't know quite when that is. This book comes out the 2nd. It's available for signing. It's what I'm going to be signing, but I'll also, if you brought other stuff from home, be signing that. By the way, this is so cool. This guy's doing this, isn't it? I've never had this before. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, I will have answers.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Well, first of all, big Animorphs fan. I think the
Cool.
Facebook title that says "The Animorphs Stole My Childhood and I Don't Want It Back" sums it up. But I was just curious to know more about how that collaboration worked and why you only put under one name.
Well, the reason for the one name was that we had kind of established our career a little bit as Catherine Applegate. I was writing incognito. Like when we worked for Sweet Valley Twins, at first I didn't even admit I was doing it. And then the editors kind of knew I was because I was talking to them on the phone. But at the point where we finally made the pitch for Animorphs, Catherine was a known commodity and I wasn't. And we wanted it to be gender non-specific. Nobody knew who the hell I was. And I thought, well, okay, whatever. Besides, I was writing Barfarama under a pseudonym at the same simultaneously. And here's the funny thing. We thought that would be a hit and that Animorphs would be like a little cult thing. And it turned out to be a big cult thing. As for how the collaboration worked, there was some yelling. This is the days before we had kids. We had Jake, I think, was born around book 11. So we were kidless to begin with. So we had plenty of time to spend, fighting, and did. So there was a lot of, if you imagine like a juggling act between two people who love each other but don't always get along, then you got the picture. And honestly, neither of us could now, either or with this book, could not go back and tell you, I wrote this, she wrote that, because it was, but you get these weird scenes that only happen in our lives that are like, how a wife will yell at the husband for leaving dirty dishes or whatever? Exactly like that. Like, what the hell are you doing leaving me with that chapter? You left me nowhere. I have no idea where you're going. Could you at least signal where you're going? That kind of thing. So
did you like go back and forth different chapters?
yeah, well, every iteration of that, because like when she was, when Jake was born, he was in intensive care, NICU at first because he was a preemie. So like a month there, I was writing it all. Then when she was better, she was writing more. It would go back and forth depending on the circumstances of our lives, more or less. Yeah. So, but I claim all the good ones. Those are all mine. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Hang on. Be cool. Let's go over here. Yeah.
I was just wondering, do you have any opinion on why teenage dystopians are so popular today?
She's asking why are teen dystopians so popular today? I have no clue. And I'll tell you that the funny thing is, I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I was at an event at Barnes & Noble in Washington. Like, I think Hunger had just come out. And I was there with James Dashner and Carrie Ryan and Scott Westerfeld. That SOB who brought media and had an outfit. The rest of us look like so unprepared. So in any case, it's the four of us, and the moderator goes, so, dystopia. And we all look at each other going, really? We had no idea. I don't know why. I think it's just, to be honest with you, I think it's a question of girls getting some of their own back. I think that for a long time, stories, adventure stories, thrillers, all had the same premise. Brave guy, girl runs from monster, trips like an idiot, starts screaming, and has to be rescued by the guy. And that was pretty much the entire history of fiction up until a certain point. And then I think girls were like, you know what? Occasionally, maybe the girl doesn't trip. Maybe the girl has a gun. Maybe she shoots the SOB in the head, which is what I think Suzanne Collins brought. I brought to a certain extent. A lot of people did. I think it made girls put girls in a position to have a more active role in adventure fiction and thrillers. It's my theory. I have no idea if that's right. Okay, over here.
How did you get the idea for Gone?
How did I get the idea for Gone? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I was watching the TV show Lost. There's a reason the town is called Perdido Beach, because I give a shout out because it was inspired by Lost. So the town is called Perdido, Lost in Spanish. And I was reading rereading The Stand, I should say, by Stephen King. And if you look in the map, you'll see there's a Stefano Rey National Forest. Stefano Rey is Spanish for Stephen King. Shout out to him. Now, what's funny is I didn't realize till I was halfway through the connection to Lord of the Flies. And I looked over at my wife. We were living in, where were we? Must have been North Carolina. I looked over at her and said, oh my God, I'm doing Lord of the Flies. She said, yeah, we'll do it anyway. So I proceeded from there. But that's, and of course, Disney movies, you know, because what do Disney movies do? First thing they do is they kill the parents. It's true. Nemo has no mom. Aladdin has no mom. Jasmine has no mom. I don't think Aladdin has a mom or a dad. All of them have no mom. Some of them also have no mom or dad. The one time they had a mom was in Bambi, so they shot her right then. Can't have this. Boom. So I thought, well, I can do better than that. I'll get rid of all of them. I'll just make a clean sweep. Let me jump over here.
The books that you write are so rich in the slang that you come up with for your characters. And how and why do you do that?
I'll tell you the truth. I am probably the least self-aware writer ever in that, I mean, I talk to these writers all the time who have theories, and I never do. Here's my day. I sit, and right now, I always like to try to work outside if weather allows. So right now I live in Marin County, so when the fog's not in, I can sit out on my deck in my rocking chair, and I have no idea what I'm going to write that day. I don't plan, I don't think about it, I just sit down and write about it. I mean, every now and then I'll be thinking about it, I'll be taking a shower and go, yeah, I should think about this. Or, you know, drinking a glass of wine and thinking, you know what would be great if I thought about it. But then I actually just sit down and do it. So I don't know. I'm a completely untutored writer, as in, you know, high school dropout. I've never taken a writing course. I have almost literally no idea what the hell I'm doing. And even less of an idea why. So I do things because they feel right, because the little person who lives in the back of my head, who does the writing for me, says that's what goes on the paper, which is a terribly unsatisfying idea, I know, but that's the truth. Yeah. Dude.
How did your moving around as a child influence your writing?
I think moving around, well, I think it made me an outsider. Because, you know, other kids would sit in the pep rally or something, and they'd be going on about, hey, we're number one, we're the best school ever. And I would be sitting there thinking, well, actually, you know what? I got 8 other schools, and some of those were better. So I was always kind of the outside observer. And I think one of the reasons I resisted for so long getting into writing was that up until that point, I had imagined myself as the hero. And I thought I would be an action figure. I thought I'd be Bruce Willis. I have the hair. And then at some point you become a writer, you realize, well, no, you know what I am? I'm the guy who writes about the hero. And that's kind of a weird moment. So I had thought I was going to be doing all of that, and then it turned out I was a writer. And it took me a long time to kind of come to realize that, although I'd always known I could, which sounds like an arrogant thing to say, but I always knew that I had a facility for language, and I knew that I could write, even though I hadn't done it. But it was always there, like a family business I could inherit someday, you know, kind of thing, where I know I have that as a fallback. So I'd be waiting tables or something, and in the back of my head, I could still maybe someday write, but I wasn't doing anything practically about it. I don't think it's harmed me in any way. Well, I mean, if you knew the full details of my biography, you'd be like, geez, are you kidding? Look at you, you're a mess. But in any case, I think it's been kind of cool, and we move our kids around fairly frequently, just for the hell of it, just to torture them. Yeah, it's good for them. Yeah. Yeah.
When will Light and Berserk 2 come out?
Light comes out April, like the first week of April, and Berserk comes out, I think, in May. But I'm guessing because I never know this stuff. Look on, you know what? Go on Amazon. That's what I do. And look for release dates. Yeah.
In the Animorph series, who's your favorite character?
In the Animorph series, probably Marco. I think Marco is probably the most autobiographical of the characters. He starts off kind of very refusing to get involved. And he's mostly the one making the dumb jokes. But he's also got a certain ruthlessness in terms of his ability to analyze the situation and find the shortest route from A to B. And I would say all that's characteristic of me. Not necessarily a good thing to have that particular habit of mind, but I always try to analyze things in terms of how do I get from here to there, and then later on I add on moral considerations, eventually, you know, or not. Yeah.
How do you think your fan base will react to Light?
I don't know. I kill off a bunch of people. And I'm totally not telling you what or who, but I'm killing off a bunch. And some of them, it's like I got to that point, like I said, I don't know. So I write into the scene, I go, oh my God, I have no way to get so-and-so out of this. so-and-so's dead. And I go, that's a drag. That happened to so-and-so. Is there any way I should save so-and-so? They go, nah, it's time. it's time. You got to be honest with the story. So I don't know. I hope they're a little bit sad, and then I hope they are. I hope they think I got 75% of what they wanted done. I can't check in on every single thing. You know, I couldn't turn the whole book into a laundry list of here's this I didn't answer and here's that unresolved plot point. I wanted to still have it be a book, you know, not just like a conclusion. So, dude, hoping you like it. You know, tell me. I am on, by the way, if people do want to yell at me at any point, 5 minutes on Twitter as @TheFayz, TheFayz. And then I'm also on Facebook. I friend everybody. It's my personal page, but I have no personal life, so whatever. Author Michael Grant, and I do actually talk to people. If you're writing me by my email that's on my Tumblr site, good luck. That goes to my assistant. She was on a bike ride for 2 months. I have, you know, there's a kind of, it's hard to, yeah, Facebook or Twitter. Yeah.
Is there a reason that you like writing creepy books?
Is there a reason I like writing creepy books? Well, there may be something wrong with me. I've written some stuff. Now I've told this story before. This is one, you know, so there's Lana, who's in the Gone books, who can heal people with a touch. And they're starving. So here was my thought. One of them could cut off a part of their own body, eat it in order to satisfy the hunger, and then have Lana heal them. And this is the kind of thing I would then tell my wife, and she would look at me and go, why the hell am I married to you? Because we're very, you know, so I don't know. It's fun for me. But I also write The Magnificent 12 is humor. And Even Adam is, I think people are kind of surprised that it's not, like there's no horrible massacres or anything. It's, you know what it is? It's a biblical sci-fi rom-com thriller. Because that is the new thing. We're done with dystopia. It's all biblical sci-fi rom-com thrillers now. So it was kind of, we did it as, we thought it was kind of fun and that Gone fans would like it as a lighter thing, you know, not so violent, not so dark. It's a romantic comedy. We're meant to have, you know, we're having fun basically and having a good time, and I hope you'll like that too. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. You talked about writing as you go and discovering that your characters die in the scene that you happen to be in.
Yeah.
For the end of the Animorphs, not spoiling anything if you haven't read it, but did you know the ending? Did you know who would die or what would happen?
We had a feeling actually on that several books earlier. Yeah, we thought this particular character, not to spoil it for anybody, had become so adapted to the environment in which this character lived and had become so much a part of war in her mind that we didn't see a way to move that forward. And somebody had to, because we wanted the end to be realistic. We wanted it to be, it was a war story, and some people come out of it fine, and other people come out of it better than they were going in, and some people come out of it having no way to figure out what to do with their lives, and some people are killed or injured. You know, and one of them had to die in order to tell an honest story.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Are we out of, how are we done? We done? I just got 2 minutes. Okay.
I love the humor in Even Adam, but where did the evil mother come from?
Well, the evil mother is basically our version of Yahweh, God the Father. So that's why I say we plugged in Easter eggs. So we kind of reversed roles for everybody. But her name is Terra, as in Terra, short for Earth, Gaia, you know. So our little kind of like, yeah, okay. That's and she has a place which is perfect. The office she's in and the place she's in is just magnificent. It's our Garden of Eden kind of. So that was it. And then we wanted to play with, you know, serpents and Even Adam and the whole and the whole thing. So is she based on a particular character? No. No. Kind of me if I was a girl. Yeah. And hot.
Hello? Yes. Just having, you talk about having had kids. Have they influenced the way you write and the way your wife writes?
Yes, well, I'm interrupted a lot more now. So I've gotten used to that. You know, those long stretches of time you used to have, and those are gone. And so my entire day is broken up into, like, you know, 18-second fragments now. No, they haven't, actually. My son has read, my son's big contribution was that he read Hunger, which is a god-awful long book, like 600 pages or something. He read it on his iPhone, and he read it before there was a book reader. This is just plain text. And this is when I thought, oh, this is something. This is real. People telling me this won't happen. No, this is going to happen. I got a kid reading a 600-page book on an iPhone on a 3.5-inch screen. So that was useful. My daughter is not a big reader, and because she was adopted fairly late in life, she has issues associated with abandonment. So I started to read Gone to her, and she was like, dude, no. And I said, okay, because that's my feeling is that kids should be allowed to self-censor. I don't think you have to tell kids what they should read or shouldn't read. As a matter of fact, I think it's a bad idea. I think you should let kids read what they want to read, and if it's too damn much, then they'll stop. Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much. I'm going to go sign books at 3. Thanks.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.